life is not supposed to be disconnected, right? We are there to be in trust and to be connected and to feel joy and happiness. And I would not wait too long with that, right? So if there is something, there's always something we can do, right? Small adjustments, big adjustments. It always depends on the situation, right? But there's always something we can do. So do not accept that life is suffering or life is pain. No, there's always a way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Being Inspired radio show. My name is Amanda Johnson, your host, and I am really excited to have our guest with me today. This is a woman who I have had the pleasure of knowing in one way or the other for the past, 9 months now. And she and I have connected on many levels in many different ways. And what I can say about her, though I have not yet met her in person, is that her energy is palpable. It is, she literally feels a light with energy. There's this lightness, this brightness to her whole being. And I know you will sense that. You will pick up on that through our conversation today. And like all conversations, I trust that what is meant to be shared, said, explored will be. And the greatest thing about that is that you are listening for a reason. There is something that is going to be said or shared in our conversation today that you need to hear. That's why you were called to listen in the first place. So today with us, I am very excited to invite Sunny Ju to the show. Sunny is a suicide survivor who suffered from depression and chronic pain for many years and was disconnected from her body. Even though she was a high performer in international management consultancy, she felt empty and hopeless inside. Sunny hit a healing plateau with conventional medicine and searched for alternative healing. And during her first De-Armouring workshop, she finally experienced a breakthrough. A major release came in the form of an intense outburst of emotional and physical pain. A lifetime of suppressed fear, anger, and grief dissolved into spaciousness and inner peace. Today, Sunny feels alive, joyful, and connected with her body. That is the energy, by the way, I was speaking about. She is fully dedicated to working with people to find their greatest resources and experience more aliveness and connection with themselves, others, and nature. Driven by a longing and passion for healing, Sunny has been traveling the world for many years to study with spiritual teachers and masters from different lineages and schools, including Bodywork, De-Armouring, sacred sexuality, breathwork, Tantra, yoga, meditation, sound healing, and coaching. A session or retreat with Sunny is more than bodywork or breathwork or coaching. It's a dynamic and empowering journey where participants are touched on all layers to experience deep relaxation, expansion, and integration. And with that, Sunny, I welcome you to the show.
Oh, Amanda, thank you for having me. Hello.
Oh, hello, dear one. We are in for a treat, as are each and every listener out there. So today, as always, I open our container, this sacred space, with a simple, not always easy question. Yet I feel it is a very important question for all of us to feel into at some point on our journey. And so, Sunny, the question I want to open our conversation with today is, why do you do what you do?
Oh, yes. Thank you for this question. It's a good one. I do what I do because it's my biggest passion. And it has been simply my own journey through many, many years. And I'm just sharing this healing journey. So it was all coming in a very, natural flow. And in an organic growth, it's so, there's so much beauty in in seeing how much easier I can make it for people, right? Because when I was in a situation that I was depressed or suicidal or having chronic pain, I wished I would have met someone like me, really. Someone who has experienced different things and could give me some shortcuts to not have so many years of suffering, right? So I'm sharing really from this space of wishing transformation and wishing to support people with healing and be in their bodies and have more joy in life.
I love that answer. And I love that it comes from this, of course, this deep desire for supporting others, of course. So that service mindset. And equally, what I love about this, and I trust you won't take offense. I know you won't, because there's actually nothing, in my opinion, negative about this word. But there's also this selfish, there's selflessness in that you want to support others, and this selfishness in I wish I had had this, right? So there's this beautiful duality there. And to me, I think everything we do really comes from both. I know that's true for me. And so I love that. Let's give our listeners a little bit more of a picture of what is it that you do. So, of course, you've been through this journey of deep depression, and now you are reconnected with your body. So we talked about why you do what you do, to perhaps shortcut some of the suffering, or to get people into this state of joy and aliveness that you are now experiencing more deeply. And so what is it that you are doing, and what has this journey looked like for you?
What is it what I'm doing? I wish I would have one sentence answer.
It would be a very short podcast if you did. So I'm glad you have more than one sentence.
Yeah, so I would describe, the answer, I've been asked this question quite often, and the answer is always different, because there are so many different angles to look at what I'm doing. And I think it's good to say that whatever I do, I look at the whole picture. So I am really working and sharing from a holistic approach. That means that my passion is everything around the body. So how can we live in a healthy body? How can we be connected to our body? And how can we have healthy relationships? How can we feel fully alive? And there are so many ways to access that. So there is body work, there is breath work, there is looking at conditioning and behaviors, there is sound healing, working with vibrations. So I'm like a transformational guide, I would say, who can help support you to land and ground in your body and feel everything, welcome all your feelings, learn how to use your emotions and not being used by them or having no control or having to suppress them, and live a life which is really more of a liberated life, right? If I can be really fully in my body and I can own my emotions and I can take responsibility for my actions, and also if I fail with things and I do things wrong, to not to judge myself endlessly and to go through a cycle of looking at it and repair relationship, staying in it and together. So that's my passion.
There's a few things. First of all, there's no coincidence, in my opinion, that you and my last guest both are speaking to the importance of being in the body. And I know, at least in my life, messages, information starts coming at me more rapidly and more closer together in a timeline when it's really something that I'm either ready for or moving into or really needing. And I want to acknowledge that because I know I am a reflection of all of my listeners out there in one way or another. And so this may be true for you listening, that you may be getting a lot of messages right now about being more connected to your body. And I would encourage you and invite you to pay attention to that. And of course, this conversation with Sunny might be exactly what you need to go into that deeper level of exploration. Sunny, something you said though really stood out to me, and I want to go in that direction. There's many directions we could go right now, but what really struck me was when you talked about feeling all of your emotions, because of course the emotions are in our body, right? We experience them in our bodies if we allow ourselves to. But this thing about being feeling all of the emotions, using our emotions, and not letting our emotions use us or control us. And I would love to explore that with you. Either, talking just more about that as a concept, like why that's important, and also a bit more of, what does that look like? What does it look like to feel but not be ruled by or controlled by our emotions?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So in my own healing journey, I was coming from very conventional methods, right? So I was going through trauma therapy, behavioral therapy, and there was one major key, what I have learned, is really engraved in my body, and that is that emotions come and they go. It means that I'm having an inner picture, an inner vision of waves, right? The wave comes, it builds up really, really high, and it will go down again. So coming into a space of acceptance that in whichever state we are in that moment, it will not last forever. This inner wisdom and knowledge in times of deepest desperation and depression has literally saved my life, because I really learned that I don't know how, but I have to keep on breathing. So just from one breath to the next, and it will go. Something else will come. And that was my key in really dark times. And thanks God, times are not always only dark. So there's a whole range of emotions we are having. And let me take one as an example to explain the concept I believe in of not being controlled by emotions. And one of these emotions is anger. In my conditioning, in my upbringing, I learned that it is not okay to be angry. And the anger which I've experienced in other people in this time was when people lost control, and anger turned into really, really destroying force. And that happens when we are suppressing anger in the moment when it's really related to that moment and situations and maybe people. And we push it into our body. We don't come up, because it's not okay to be angry. So if I am angry, then I'm a bitch, right? If a man is angry, then he's an aggressor and violent. So we are not allowed to do that. That means that this anger, which sums up in the body, it's being stored, it will come out in some point. And usually it comes out in moments when we are surrounded by our beloved ones, and it hits the innocent people. And these are usually our beloved ones. Means if we don't find a way to vent out our anger in a healthy and functional way, it will explode and we will cause collateral damage to our relationships. And I really know what I'm talking about, because I've been doing that for decades. And that is really, really sad, because we can use anger in a very beautiful way. It's actually, when we can control when it comes out, it can be something very, very cleansing and making me feel really alive. So what I'm, for example, having is, I call it my anger practice, not necessarily daily, but it is definitely there. So let's assume there is a situation when I'm getting really, really angry, but I can't let it out in that moment. So I will go home, and I have a magic tool. I call it, it's a pool noodle. Do you know what a pool noodle is?
Yes.
So I take my pool noodle, my sacred pool noodle, by the way, and I take my 5 minutes, and I really tune into this situation, which caused a lot of anger. And I take my pool noodle, and I'm freaking out with this pool noodle. So I'm smashing it against my bed, and I'm screaming, and I'm really politically absolutely not correct. I'm using words which would create a lot of beeps in this radio show. And it's so good. I'm so personal, right? So I'm like, oh, you beep, beep, beep. And what I'm actually doing there is I'm using breath, sound, and movement to release an emotion, because for anger, it's usually in a way that my boundaries have been violated in some ways or another. So I do that for 2 minutes, and I mean, wow, I feel like I am so alive. My eyes are shining. My blood is running through my veins. I'm like, oh, so in my body. After I have done that, I can address this, and I can go to that person and say, listen, what happened in that situation has made me feel like, and I can explain it from the point of view of my body, without going into a cycle of, you have been doing this to me, I am blaming you, and coming into a state of victim and coming into blaming and projecting cycle. That means I'm speaking from a relaxed nervous system to another person, and that creates a completely different receptivity for what I want to address. So I will be received on a different level. And this is just a beautiful foundation to solve everything. That means that I took care of my emotion, because that my boundaries have been violated is not necessarily the fault of the other person, right? Because it's based on my history, my story, what happened to me in the past. Some people have a higher tolerance, some have a lower, but the key is I have taken care of my anger, and I can go relaxed into conversation. And this is how I can use my anger. I use it to clean up my system from inside, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm, first of all, loving the image. I'm also really loving the invitation for each of us. It's not a practice I have done regularly. I have done at times here and there, but hearing you express this, it's reminding me of the value and the importance, and a story or an image is also coming up. I believe it was, I mean, this is just known information, but I think I heard of it through Eckhart Tolle. You know, he would talk about ducks, or any animal. I mean, you could see it in dogs too, but one example would be a duck. And if you watch two ducks get in a squabble of some sort, right? If they start fighting, they'll fight, and then they'll swim away and they'll flap their wings really, 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 really big, right? And they'll just kind of get all the energy out, and then they'll float on their merry way. And I feel it's a similar, like animals and nature know how to release this energy from their bodies. And I think as humans, to your point, we have been conditioned and programmed that it's not okay or it's not safe to do that. And so we suppress it. So I love your example. I love your invitation and the example of what healthy releasing looks like. How can it be healthy and functional versus constructive versus destructive? And I love that. And I would love to go a little bit further into this idea of the question that's coming up for me as you're talking is, and maybe it's because I'm somewhat aware, but I'd also be curious if there's, of course, more information I need to learn on this. Also for listeners who may or may not fully understand or know, how does one know whether or not they are disconnected from their body? Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? How do you know that you were disconnected from your body? And then also, how do you know when other people are? To give us a sense of where we are on this spectrum.
Yeah. So there are again different angles to look at it. The body is speaking in different ways and without words. So I'm a body worker. So what I am doing is I am reading bodies. That means I look at the structure of a body, and I can see within the structure where the tension sits, or the stagnant energy, or the blockage. And then depending on the area where it sits, let's say it sits in the area of the belly, for example. There's a whole teaching around which body parts are connected to which emotions, right? So in the belly area, there's the psoas muscle, and we need this muscle for fight or flight reaction. It means if a tiger comes and there's an actual danger, we need to run away, and we need this muscle. At the same time, this muscle is moving our hips, and it's moving our hips into orgasm. That means if I have a psoas muscle, which is too tense or too relaxed, which is another way how it can be, so not in balance, I might not be able to experience full pleasure through orgasms. And I might be dealing with a lot of fear in my life, a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, right? So that's one way to look at the body structure. And another way is to listen to what someone is saying. So if I do not feel the full range of emotions, and I've just had someone I've been having a conversation with yesterday, and he said, well, I don't feel so much, I'm like more or less relaxed. I'm never angry, and I'm also not sad. And that's, for me, that's a sign that there is a suppression. And the suppression does not have to be conscious, right? It's just that if we have this full range of emotions and we cut out the highs and we cut out the lows, we are in a kind of middle. But that's a little bit like watching black and white TV instead of watching colored TV. And that's another indicator that someone is not in the body. So if they don't feel, or if they have areas of the body where they have pain and had a lot of treatment, but the pain is just not going away, is coming back and back, no matter how often they go to physiotherapy, for example. Or if someone feels numb, like not, for example, not connected to sexuality or to their full expression of pleasure, right? They're like women or men who cannot really orgasm with full pleasure. So all these are signs that someone is disconnected from the body.
Beautiful. That's so insightful. And I think, again, even for me, absolutely still picking up on those areas where more connection is being invited for me, because there's certainly places like that I can relate to and resonate with. My next question here that's coming up, it was like so immediate. I wanted to, what I love about what you do and how you offer what you do, because you're right, you offer so many different you can approach this from so many different angles. You're so well educated and well versed, and there's this consistency, right? There's this through line. There is this cohesiveness with what you do, and I love that you invite your participants, your clients, these people you work with, to go on a journey with you. And I'm curious if you can speak to that as well as a little bit of your own journey, because what I'm really curious about in most of these conversations is, the transformation that has occurred in your life, which is what you are offering others, right? So it's like, what was it like to be Sunny? And not that you have to dwell in that, but just like, can you paint that picture for us of, where were you before that maybe some people listening can really relate to or identify with? And what transformation has occurred, and why, why would you just be so passionate about inviting others into this same journey you've gone on?
Yeah. Oh, where was I before? From the outside, I had the perfect life. So I was a manager or director in international management consultancy. I was traveling internationally all the time, had my business class flight tickets and my first class train rides, had a really fast computer, had a big car, lots of money, big roles, great promotions, and I was a high potential. So it was like, give me something no one can solve, I'm going to take care of it. So my whole approach was, I was highly efficient, and there was nothing which could really stop me, right? So I was totally in my fighting mode also. Like, there's no solution. No, that was not part of my world. That's not possible. I was just pushing things through with a lot of violence, without understanding that there's a lot of violence in working 70 or 80 hours a week. And I just had this, really strong performance and goal orientation. And I was drinking a lot in my last years of maybe the last 2 years or something in my job. So I used alcohol to decompensate, because my nervous system was so shaky of being on alert all the time. So I was working under a lot of fear. So I was so high in my performance that I always thought, if I don't do more, they will get me. It will be not enough. So I was actually driven by fear all the time. That means the nervous system is shaking. And to sleep, I was usually drinking a bottle of red wine, because that was something how I could numb out my system. And that's something which I know from many friends who were at that time in that area of life and of performance, right? So we were high performers, and we were trying to balance that in any way. And I had a relationship, and in my relationship, I used to be married, and then I had 2 long relationships, each 6 years, which were like the last really significant experiences. And in both relationships, I experienced the same cycles of, we were fighting against each other. So there was a sense of competition. There was also a sense of team, so we can rock it together. But there was a lot of blaming, a lot of victimhood, a lot of not being available. One was needy, one was not available. And I was missing this effortlessness. So there has been a lot of drama. Looking at my friends' circles, how much time you have for connecting with people. So I woke up one morning and I was somewhere in a hotel, and I had a panic attack right away. So I completely lost orientation. I had no idea in which country I am, which client, what am I doing there, which project. So I completely lost orientation. And that was the moment when I understood, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. And I really felt that this is all completely senseless, what I am doing. I am not interested in financial consolidation or planning. I'm not interested if a big company does their financial close with 2 days faster, which for them is millions and millions of dollars. But for me, it really doesn't matter. And I was just so tired of all this pressure and this fighting and trying to be how I am supposed to be, right? Because there was a lot of that. How much joy did I really allow myself? When have I been really laughing really deeply the last time? So when I looked back, I found a lot of suffering and not so much happiness. And life can be really joyful, like almost all the time, actually. I just didn't know, because this suffering, this state of suffering, was the only thing I knew, because I am German, and I feel that part of my conditioning was that I have to go through it, because we have been building up the country after the war, so we can take more, we can do it. And I decided to. So I finished the project I was at. I was actually in New York, and I finished the project, and I flew back, and I went to the office, packed my stuff, and called in sick, and I never came back there. Right. I didn't know at that time that I would never come back, but I knew I need a break and I need to do something different, because these loops of almost burnout, then job, having a nice vacation of 1 or 2 months in between, go for backpacking, traveling the world, relax, no watch, no cell phone, nothing, coming back and again going through the same cycle. So I was more and more and more drained, right? So I knew there has to be something completely different. I need a reset for my whole system. I just can't do it anymore. This cannot be it. And I was looking around me, and there's this way of, you need to get married, and you have your children, then you have a house, and maybe you paint your garden fence and wash your car on Saturdays, and you are looking forward to the next promotion in job, and then you have paid the rates for your house, and then la la la. So it seemed like everything was planned through until I die. There was no flow in life. I was doing everything, every activity I did only with my Microsoft Outlook calendar. So like no statement about my time without my calendar. So how can I breathe this idea of what do I really want? I never had that idea. I was always doing everything from a perspective of being highly functional. Right. So I ended up studying something what I'm not interested in, actually, which I know is the same for many people. I ended up in a life where my relationships were not fulfilling. Conversations were boring, not nourishing. This is like really a lot of suffering. I just have to come back to the suffering. It's this. That's yeah. Oh.
And thank goodness that is now in the past. And I think it's so incredible when we, and not that, to be human on some level means suffering, but we don't have to belabor it the way so many of us do in our lives. And let's now come to this other side of the coin, which, or the other, closing out the circle of this journey, this, heroine's journey you went on. So what is life now? What is it? What's your experience now?
One of my key moments, I think, was when I sat down. I had a therapist at that time, and I was looking at all areas in my life. So there was my social life, my job, my living situation, my love relationship, my hobbies. So many, many little circles. And I looked at it, and it was not looking good. And I then started to define for each area, and that's a very rational approach actually, but I started to define for each area what I really want, right? So sexuality, I want to have a fulfilled sexuality, and I want to have more pleasure, and I don't want to think of anyone else. I really want to be in a space of receiving and have orgasms and have pleasure and let that go through the ceiling, like unlimited amount with the full body. That's how I found Tantra, for example, right? So just coming from this, what do I want? And I did, for some areas, I just didn't know. I only knew I don't want this anymore. And it was a part of the journey. And I gave one promise to myself at that time. And I said, I will not do any decision which is based on pure rationality anymore. Means my life now is really completely guided by my intuition. So every answer to any question I am having, and that goes from what am I eating now to when do I book my flight and where does my flight ticket go? So where does my flight go to? These answers are coming from my gut feeling, my intuition, and I find the answers inside of my body. So it's a completely different approach, which makes actually flight tickets kind of expensive because if there is no answer, then I cannot make the decision yet. And that's sometimes, not so easy because the mind wants to do. Yeah. So there is not so much doing. There's a lot of being in my life. And I would say that I have beautiful, really, really deep and very healthy relationships. I am living really my purpose. So I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. I love every single moment of it. And I feel like I'm in my purpose, right? And it's changing all the time. So there's a really big flow. I live half of my time in Europe and half of my time in Asia at the moment. I've been going back and forth now for several years. Didn't have a home for a long time because I decided that it was not needed at that time. And now I'm coming more to a space of a little bit settling and wanting to create 2 or 3 bases. I have a base in Berlin now, which is like a little nest. And I just love to have this factor of unknown in my life, right? So sometimes it's a bit scary, but it makes it really a journey. It creates a lot of space where I can say, yes, I'm in the flow now. I can do what I feel. I can do what I want. So there's a lot of spaciousness in my life. And I really feel my body. I am pain-free. I am not drinking anything, so no alcohol at all. I'm completely sober. I don't need any antidepressants. I just eat whatever my body wants to. So I lost a lot of weight. So my whole being is in a balance. And it doesn't mean that I only have these happy feelings. There are days when I'm like, oh, wow, I need to breathe. That's a big challenge. And at the same time, I have so many tools. So where I know, I can accept it. If I am sad, I can just be with it. I can give my space to be sad. I can cry and I can just be with it, right? So I have this balance of giving myself the space to be with whatever is. And sometimes there's life is happening, like it's like reality is there. So I cannot have a big anger release when I'm somewhere in a supermarket, but I know that I'll just keep it for a little while and then I give myself space for it. That's
Mm.
Is that a good description?
That's kind of hard to
description.
Those listening who go, I want that. Well, what I invite you all to remember is that it is possible. It is possible. That's why I have these conversations, because it may look different in your life. It may come about differently in your life. And the reality is, it is possible for every single one of us. It's whether or not we are open to that. Are we open to the spaciousness and the unknown? For me, it often starts with that. Am I willing, like Sunny did, to call in sick one day and not know if she was going to return to work? That's the unknown, right? So are we willing to lean into that, to create this spaciousness, to create this opportunity to experience all of it from a much more balanced perspective? So Sunny, that was a gorgeous description. I'm excited. I'm inspired by it. And I know that those listening are as well. And what I'd love to do is, before we close out with a few questions and with where people can find you and know what you're up to, because I imagine if you just listened to Sunny and you feel a resonance with her, there is an opportunity, an invitation to work with her, to experience what she experiences and offers firsthand. And we'll make sure you know all about that. But before we get to that, Sunny, I just want to ask, is there anything else that is coming up for you that you really wanted to share that maybe we didn't get to touch on yet?
Yes. There is something about gratitude. So what was really a key for me is to understand that life is not endless. And we have this beautiful body. We received it as a gift. So we are allowed to move through this life. And I know from so many people who said, like, yeah, when I'm retired, then I'm doing these things, and then I'm doing that. And it happens to so many that they get retired and then something happens and they are not going to experience what they wanted because the body is giving up, right? The health is not good enough or whatever happens. And if you are not happy in your life, take a moment, take a deep breath and look at it and come back to this feeling of living a life, and this is a gift. So how can I use this gift? How can I not waste it? How can I appreciate it? How can I be in connection? Because life is not supposed to be disconnected, right? We are there to be in trust and to be connected and to feel joy and happiness. And I would not wait too long with that, right? So if there is something, there's always something we can do, right? Small adjustments, big adjustments, it always depends on the situation, right? But there's always something we can do. So do not accept that life is suffering or life is pain. No, there's always a way.
Absolutely beautiful. Life is a gift. I needed to hear that. Yeah. Can we receive the gift? Oh my goodness. Thank you for that, Sunny. So for all of you who are listening and going, oh, she's talking to me, then pay attention to the last few minutes, because you're going to want to know how to connect with Sunny, how to find her, how to experience what she offers. And then, of course, go on your own path and your own journey and see what else emerges. So as we conclude, there are 3 questions I like to ask each of my guests. These are whatever comes up in the moment. You can share top of mind, if you will. But this is what is inspiring to you. So the first question, Sunny, who is a source of inspiration for you and why?
Oh. Wow. A source of inspiration for me is definitely Osho. So through his meditations, I have experienced a lot of liberation and a lot of happiness and a lot of being with emotions. Yeah. So he's one of my masters, even if he's not in his body anymore. But that's a big one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Second question. What place or activity most inspires you right now?
What place or activity?
Sex is totally on the table, by the way. If you
At the moment, I'm really inspired by myself. I have to say that, and how I am surrendering to life, because I am transforming all the time. And I've had a year of being more going inwards, and I have the first time in my life really now this feeling that I want to connect with groups of people, which is very uncommon for me. And it's so inspiring to live here in Kopangan in a conscious community where there are so many people who dedicate their life and their time to healing and living in a conscious way, right? So it's so beautiful to be on this journey together and see how we are amplifying each other's processes all the time. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that answer. Oh my goodness. And our third question is, what is a book that has inspired you on your journey that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh my God. I've been reading like maybe 5 books a week since I was 5 years old. I learned reading before I came to school because I just had to know it. Oh, there is no particular book that comes up for me now. So at the moment, I'm reading about the nervous system and the polyvagal theory. So I'm having phases where I get totally into something, and that's my passion at the moment. And the inspiration is really changing on where I'm at in the moment. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you a simple answer to this question.
It's often the most challenging question I ask, actually. It's so interesting. You're not the only one. So
yeah, and I'm not cheating. So I should have maybe informed myself better to know which questions you were asking. But I'm like coming here like a very innocent person and having no idea what's happening.
That's my actually, it's my preference. I there's a reason I don't say these are the questions I'll be asking, because I love to hear what comes up in the moment, even if it's, wow, there isn't one coming to mind. That is exactly what needed to be said. So yes, I enjoy reading about the nervous system. That sounds painfully boring to me, but I love that it's inspiring you. Oh, Sunny. So what's most important at this point? I mean, those were beautiful answers, and so honest, of course. That's my other favorite part, is that it's an opportunity to be honest and authentic in the moment. And now, of course, for those listening, let's be sure they know where to find you and how to connect with you, either online and in person, because you have a retreat coming up. So let's be sure they know about all of that. Where can they find you? And tell us a little bit about your next retreat.
Yes. So you can connect with me through coming as a participant to one of my retreats, or book me for a transformational coaching session, or have individual sessions with me, which would mean body work or breath work, for example. But that would need a physical, let's say we should be in the same dimension, same country. The next retreat, which is coming up, is a De-Armouring retreat in the North Bali. And in this retreat, it's 6 days from January 29th to February 4. We will melt away the layers of protection we have been building up through trauma, tension, suppression of emotions. And we really open up the body and we have this this desire, this longing to feel fully alive. And we'll be also working with sexuality and without touching any genitals, by the way. So we'll be opening up the body and have the energy flowing. We have ecstatic dance there. We have sound healing. We will work with vibration, so with tuning forks on the bodies. We have meditations. We have yoga. We have Balinese temple purification ceremony, a fire ceremony. So it's very, very beautiful. And it is body work. So you learn how to release armor, the layers of protection, and you also learn a lot of self-practices. Right? So how to be in life and how to not put the armor back in. So it's highly transformational and really nourishing, beautiful retreat. That's the next one. And then there's a series of De-Armouring retreats coming up in Europe. So we have like 5 dates already confirmed, and then there's more coming.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, and I can feel the power of the retreat already. We'll be sure, for those listening, you can get to Sunny's website in the show notes. You can go to her name, sunnyju.com, to learn more. And of course, there will be just other ways of connecting with her. Be sure to reach out, find her. If anything she said resonated, if you feel the urge or the calling to Bali, this may be your chance. So, of course, if depending on when you're listening to this, this may have already passed, but there will be more coming, as she said. So find her either way. Whenever you are listening to this message, it is for you. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Sunny, I want to thank you for your light in the world, for your journey of transformation that you have gone on, so that you can take others on that journey as well. And thank you for sharing all of that with us here today in this space.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you so much for having me. That was really a pleasure.
So beautiful. Everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Be sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the show so that you are notified of more of these inspiring and transformational conversations. Like it, share it with a friend, and help us spread these words of inspiration, these messages of what life can be like. It does not need to be full of pain and suffering. It can be all of it, including the joy and the pleasure. Thank you so much.